All right, so you're here because gold IRAs have piqued your interest, and that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We're going to be dissecting this whole idea of investing in precious metals for retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, we're going to be looking through the lens of this pretty comprehensive guide that we found by Doug Young.
Okay.
He's got over 2 decades of experience with financial investing, commodities, precious metals, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, that's a lot of time in the market.
Yeah, so we're going to try to distill his expertise and give you a clear picture of, is this the right move for you? Is a gold IRA something that makes sense for your financial future?
Absolutely.
So consider this your shortcut to understanding gold IRAs.
Okay.
So maybe we could start off with like a really basic definition. Like,
Definitely.
what exactly is a gold IRA?
You got it. So basically, it's a self-directed individual retirement account.
Okay.
And what makes it special is that it lets you hold physical gold and silver, platinum, palladium.
Oh, so it's not like an ETF or something that's tracking those prices.
Right. It's the real deal.
Gotcha.
So you're actually holding tangible assets as part of your retirement savings, which is, quite different from your typical stocks and bonds.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of cool to think about having like real gold as part of your retirement plan.
Definitely has an allure to it.
So, okay, so we kind of have a basic understanding of what it is.
Yeah.
What would you say makes it really fundamentally different?
Okay, so one of the big things that Doug Young highlights is this concept of diversification.
Okay.
And we hear that word a lot in investing, right?
Yeah, diversification, don't put all your eggs in one basket and all that.
Exactly. But what's really interesting about gold is how it behaves compared to traditional assets.
Okay, how so?
Well, sometimes when the market takes a hit, a lot of assets tend to move in the same direction.
Right, they all go down together.
Yeah, but gold historically has this tendency to sort of march to the beat of its own drum.
Oh, interesting.
So it can zig when everything else zags.
Huh.
And that's a different kind of hedge.
Yeah, you're not just diversifying across different types of stocks or whatever. You're diversifying into a whole other asset class.
Exactly. And you're holding something tangible, something real.
That's a good point.
It's like having this anchor, this stable element when things get a little rough.
All right, so, I'm thinking about maybe dipping my toes into this gold IRA thing.
Sure. Okay.
What are some of the things that Doug Young says I absolutely need to know before I even start looking into this?
Good question. So there's some really practical considerations here.
Okay.
And the first one is storage.
Okay.
So unlike, your stocks that you can track online,
Right.
you can't just store physical gold anywhere.
So where does it go?
The IRS has very specific rules about this.
Right.
It has to be held in an IRS-approved depository.
What is it, like a special vault or something?
Yeah, basically it's a secure facility designed specifically for storing precious metals.
Huh, interesting.
And of course, those facilities, they come with their own costs, there are storage fees involved.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, they got to keep the lights on and keep it secure, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so storage, that's one thing. What else?
So the second thing is purity.
Purity.
Yeah. So the gold you put into an IRA,
Yeah.
it can't just be any old gold.
Right.
It has to meet certain standards set by the IRS.
Like carat or something.
Yeah, so for gold specifically, it needs to be 99.5% pure to qualify.
Wow, so almost completely pure gold.
Yeah.
Okay, so storage purity, what's number 3?
This one's crucial. You need to choose a reputable gold IRA provider.
Okay.
So they act as the custodian for your account,
Mm-hmm.
handling all the administrative stuff and making sure you're following all the IRS regulations.
Okay, so it's not like I can just go buy some gold coins and stick them in my safe deposit box.
No, it's a little more complicated than that.
Gotcha.
You need a provider who knows the ins and outs of gold IRAs.
Makes sense. All right, so we've got storage purity and finding a good provider.
Exactly.
Those are the big 3 up front.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about why someone might actually want to go through all of this. Sure.
What are some of the advantages that Doug Young points out?
Well, he really emphasizes the potential tax advantages.
Okay.
And the opportunity for your investments to grow without immediate tax implications.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit.
So with the traditional gold IRA,
Mm,
depending on your income and whether you have a retirement plan at work,
right.
your contributions might actually be tax deductible.
Oh, so I could potentially lower my tax bill this year by contributing.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Interesting. Okay.
And even more importantly, any growth within the account,
Hmm.
so the increase in the value of your gold,
Right.
that growth is tax deferred.
Okay, so I don't have to pay taxes on it until I actually take it out in retirement.
That's the idea.
So that's pretty similar to a traditional 401k or IRA, right?
It is.
You get that tax-deferred growth.
Exactly.
So what makes the Gold IRA different on the tax front?
Good point. So Doug Young also talks about this other option, the Roth Gold IRA.
Okay, yeah, he mentioned
This
here.
one offers a different kind of strategy. How so?
With a Roth, you contribute money that you've already paid taxes on.
Okay, after tax dollars.
Right. And the benefit here is that any qualified withdrawals you make in retirement are completely tax-free.
Also, I'm paying taxes now, but I get to enjoy those gains tax-free later on.
Exactly.
So it's like with a traditional Gold IRA, it's pay later, maybe at a lower tax rate.
Right.
And with a Roth, it's pay now for the potential of tax-free growth down the road.
You got it.
So it really comes down to what you think your tax bracket will be in the future.
Exactly. If you think you'll be in a higher bracket when you retire, the Roth might be more appealing.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so we've got potential tax benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Doug Young also talks about gold as a hedge against inflation
He does.
and as a source of economic security.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
So historically, gold has often acted as a hedge against inflation.
Okay.
What that means is when the purchasing power of your dollars weakens,
Like when things get more expensive.
exactly when your money buys you less, the value of gold tends to hold up or even increase.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a way to preserve your wealth during times when the value of money is going down.
That's the idea.
Huh. Okay, what about the economic security part?
Well, Doug Young highlights that gold also tends to perform well during times of economic instability.
Okay.
So think stock market crashes, recessions, things like that.
Right.
When those kinds of events happen, investors often turn to gold as a safe haven.
Because they see it as something that will hold its value even if the rest of the market is tanking.
Right. It's seen as a store of value that's less susceptible to those kinds of fluctuations.
So it can offer some peace of mind during those uncertain times.
Yeah. It can potentially provide a degree of protection against market downturns.
Okay, so we've got potential tax benefits, inflation hedge, economic security. Those are some pretty compelling arguments.
They are.
But to get the full picture, we got to talk about the downsides too.
Right. Every investment has its risks.
So what are some of the drawbacks of gold IRAs that Doug Young brings up?
Well, one of the first things you'll notice is the fees.
Fees.
Yeah, they tend to be higher with gold IRAs compared to your typical retirement accounts.
Okay, why is that?
Well, you've got fees for setting up the account,
Okay.
and then you've got those mandatory storage fees we talked about.
Right, for those secure depositories.
Exactly. And those fees, they can add up over time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then you've also got custodian fees for managing the account and making sure everything's compliant with the IRS.
So all those fees together, they can eat into your returns pretty significantly.
They can, and that's something Doug Young really emphasizes.
Huh. So higher fees are definitely something to consider.
Absolutely.
What else should I be aware of?
Okay, so another big thing is that gold itself, it doesn't generate any income.
Oh, right. Unlike stocks that can pay dividends or bonds that have interest.
Exactly.
So with gold, you're not getting any regular payments.
Right. Your return depends solely on whether the price of gold goes up.
Okay, so if gold prices stay flat or even go down, you're not making any money.
That's a possibility.
Huh. That's a pretty important thing to think about.
It is, and that's why Doug Young suggests having a balanced portfolio.
Okay.
So, you might have your Gold IRA as part of your overall retirement plan, but you also want to have other investments that do generate income.
Right. So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got higher fees, no income generation. What about when it comes time to actually use that money in retirement?
Good question. That brings us to the issue of liquidity.
Liquidity, meaning how easy it is to convert it to cash.
Exactly. And selling physical gold, it's not as straightforward as selling stocks or bonds.
Right, those are just a few clicks away.
Right. But with gold, you've got to find a buyer.
Okay.
And there might be logistical issues like transportation storage. It can be more time-consuming, and there might be additional costs involved.
Like what kind of costs?
Things like appraisal fees, shipping fees. And then there's also the issue of market demand.
Okay.
If demand for gold is low when you want to sell, it might be harder to get the price you're hoping for.
So it's not as simple as just selling it whenever you need the money.
Right. It requires a little more planning and consideration.
Okay, so we've covered costs, income generation, liquidity.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about some of the specific risks.
All right. So Doug Young highlights a few key areas.
Okay.
First and foremost is the volatility of gold prices.
Volatility meaning prices can go up and down a lot.
Exactly. And gold prices are influenced by all sorts of factors.
Like what?
Geopolitical events, changes in currency values, investor sentiment.
So if there's like a big global crisis, gold prices might shoot up.
They could, but then they could fall back down as the situation stabilizes.
Right, so it's not a guaranteed upward trajectory.
No, and that's why diversification is so important.
Right, having other investments to balance out those swings.
Exactly.
Okay, so volatility, that's one risk. What else?
Liquidity is another one. We touched on this earlier.
Right.
But it's worth emphasizing that even though gold is a globally recognized commodity,
Yeah, everyone knows what gold is,
it might not be that easy to sell it quickly at the price you want.
especially if there's not a lot of demand at that time.
Right. And that could be a problem if you suddenly need access to cash.
Okay, so it's important to have other more liquid assets as part of your portfolio.
Definitely.
All right, so volatility, liquidity, is there anything else?
Yeah, the last one is regulatory risk.
Okay,
So compliance with IRS regulations is absolutely crucial.
right.
There are rules about what types of gold you can hold.
Like that purity standard we talked about?
Exactly. And where you can store it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are reporting requirements.
Okay.
And if you don't follow those rules, you could face penalties.
So it's not just about buying gold and sticking it in an IRA.
Right. You have to make sure you're doing everything by the book.
Gotcha. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
What are some of the key things someone should think about if they're considering investing in a gold IRA?
Okay, so Doug Young really stresses the importance of aligning your investments with your financial goals
Okay.
and your risk tolerance.
So what are my goals for retirement? What am I trying to achieve?
Exactly. Are you focused on preserving your wealth, generating income, long-term growth?
Mm-hmm.
Those answers will help you determine if and how much gold should be part of your portfolio.
Right, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
No.
Yeah,
And you also have to be honest with yourself about how comfortable you are with risk.
because gold prices can fluctuate.
They can. And if you're someone who gets really nervous when your investments go up and down,
Yeah.
then a large allocation to gold might not be the best fit.
Okay, so think about your goals. Think about your risk tolerance. What else?
Doug Young also highly recommends talking to a financial advisor.
Okay.
They can help you figure out if a gold IRA is right for you
Mm-hmm.
and how it would fit into your overall investment plan.
So get some expert advice before making any big decisions.
Exactly.
And what about diversification in general?
That's crucial.
So even if I decide to get a gold IRA,
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't just put all my money in gold,
No, you still want to have a mix of different asset classes.
like stocks, bonds, real estate,
Right. The idea is to spread your risk.
so that if one area of the market isn't doing well,
Yeah,
the others can help cushion the blow.
exactly. It's all about creating a balanced and resilient portfolio.
Makes sense. So just to reiterate, Doug Young, the author of this guide, he's got over 20 years of experience in this world.
He does.
So he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time analyzing financial markets, commodities, precious metals.
And he's specifically evaluated gold IRA companies.
Right. So he's really familiar with this specific area of investing.
Okay, so just a quick note for our listeners.
Sure.
Doug Young's guide does mention that the website owners may receive compensation for recommending certain gold IRA companies.
Okay.
So it's important to keep that in mind when you're reading the reviews and recommendations.
Right. It's always good to do your own research and get information from multiple sources.
Exactly. Don't just take one person's word for it.
Right. Compare different perspectives and make sure you're comfortable with the information you're getting.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into gold IRAs, what are the key takeaways?
So basically, gold IRAs can be a way to diversify your retirement portfolio
Okay.
and potentially hedge against inflation and economic uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be aware of the fees, the lack of income generation, the complexities of selling physical gold, and the volatility of gold prices.
Right, so it's not a simple yes or no answer.
Exactly. It depends on your individual circumstances, your goals, your risk tolerance.
So the big question is, how might a gold IRA fit into your own personal vision for financial security?
Right.
Think about how gold has performed throughout history
Mm-hmm.
and how it might behave in the future. And consider whether it aligns with your overall investment strategy.
It's a decision that requires careful thought and consideration.
Yeah, we always recommend doing your own research,
Absolutely.
talking to a financial advisor if you need help,
Yeah, getting professional guidance is never a bad idea.
and making sure you understand all the risks and potential rewards before making any big decisions.
Right. It's all about making informed choices that align with your financial goals.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of gold IRAs.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.